Hello, this is the last day of February, and this is the Gem State Report. Brian Almon, Gem State Chronicle, and I'm joined by a friend from up in North Idaho, Lauren Walker, who has been down hanging out at the Capitol this week, and I'm sure getting into all sorts of trouble. So, how's it
Yes,
going?
always. It's good. How are you?
Not too bad. I watched the session from home today in my nice, comfortable chair. It was great. So, yeah, what have you been up to?
Nothing. So we came to the Capitol. We got here. Okay, so we were supposed to come down on Wednesday, and I got in a car wreck. So my Audi is dead, but we got a rental car. Thankfully, no one was hurt. We were really lucky. Got a rental car. Came up on Sunday, staying with some really cool friends that have hairy cows. Hairy cows. So they've been mooing at our window every morning, and it's pretty fun. Anyway, so we went in on Monday, and it's been quite the experience. Maybe some people don't know, but I was at the Capitol all of 2023 for session, so I knew what to expect. But I brought my friend Brandy here, my partner in crime, Brandy. She had never been to the Capitol before. And if you guys follow us on Twitter, or on X, she is Liberty Bell 208, and I am Roglue 18.
Oh, you're
And
doxing yourself.
it's okay, whatever. I mean, we pretty much doxed ourselves all week. We do a lot of stuff for the Capitol, right? We cut videos and we're watching committees, and normally we do it from the north in our pajamas. But we were like, okay, Brandy needs to experience the Capitol that she works on so hard every day. And she needs to meet all these people that we watch in committees and on the floor and testifying every day. So we came down, really gracious host with cool cows. And we showed up, and we've kind of been operating out of Representative Heather Scott's office, which has been awesome. Big office, it's nice. And I mean, we've been hanging out with all the cool people, Representative Redmond, Representative Josh Tanner, got to officially meet Representative Ehart and Horman. So what? Oh, yeah, we went and did a tour we went up to Mike Moyle's office, the speaker, and he has a cougar in his office that his wife killed. Like, it's a giant stuffed cougar, and it's really cool. And he's got this huge eclectic office, and he let us use the Thor hammer out on the floor. We got to smack it, right? I put a picture up for that.
My my homeschool students love Thor's hammer. We'll watch the clips of the session on Wednesday mornings when we do civics, and they absolutely love the hammer. They'd love a chance to come in and see it.
It's heavy. It's an actual heavy hammer. And when we picked it up, I was like, oh, and I slammed it down. It was loud, a lot of noise.
Oh goodness, it is loud when you're in there.
Oh yeah, it was very loud. And so we got to do that. Was super cool. We met Representative Monks. He was pretty cool. Today we did. Oh, I see Representative Eubanks. Hi. So Brandy's peeking, and she's been watching her comments on X. So so today we got super lucky. Kyle Harris brought his family in, and Rep Holstelter brought his family in. They had already pre-scheduled a tour in the dome, in the dome at the top. So your background basically. And we got to go up into the dome. Yeah, it's right there. It's right there. Yeah. So we got to go up into the dome, and me and Representative Scott and Senator Tammy Nichols, we went all the way as far up as we could. I mean, I'm talking narrow spiral staircase, had to walk backwards down it, very disorienting, right? But vertigo-ish. But it was super cool. Never done anything like that before.
Yeah, I actually haven't been up there. I've seen others go up there. Maybe someday. But yeah, being here, living as close as I do, I can go to the Capitol any day. And so some days I stay in my house, and I'll have 3 committee hearings, or both the House and the Senate, on different screens, watching both at the same time, and that's great. That's fun. But at the same time, there's something special about actually going into the building, interacting with the people, seeing the things you don't see on camera or hear on the microphones.
Well, so we were talking about this on the car ride over here. By the way, I'm at VCut. I advertising for VCut. We're at the famous cigar bar in Napa, hanging out with Senator Lenny, and because the Senate is so separated from the House, and we've been kind of on the House side, and we were like, no, we got to go hang out with Lenny. So we're here to hang out with Brian, but we were driving over here. We're talking about this, like we did not get a fraction of the work done that we normally do clipping because we were there. And I mean, we've had to learn the art of like, I've had to screen record on my phone, and heaven forbid I walk in the building and connect to Wi-Fi and it like blanks out, right?
Or
It's
if you get a phone call.
yeah, or you get a phone call. You did well, you did call. I think you texted me, but we got it settled. So yeah, we're recording and then doing it like I'm trying to do everything on my phone. Brandy's used to having like 3 or 4 laptops going, and she doesn't have her setup. She's right now using my laptop and hers, her one, and we're in like Heather's office, and she's listening to a committee, or we're driving in the car and she has a committee on her phone. I have a committee on it's manic. It's crazy. So, but we're still trying to get information out there, put it out. So many things happening this week. Every week feels like that, right? Like it's a fire hose. So yeah, I mean, today was a good day. What was it? 240 passed. So Representative Tanner's lewd, indecent exposure, right? We thought we were going to get 109, which is this. I've been really watching Snap, right?
Yep.
The no candy and soda Snap, Representative Redmond, and that's getting bumped until Monday. You can see the Lenny cigar smoke wafting in. So that's coming up. We pitched an idea today, and more to come, secrets. And we've got 2 sponsors for that. So that's going to happen probably this upcoming week. You'll see it in health and welfare. It's something people have been clamoring for on the X. And so Brandy and I pitched it, and we got 2 sponsors to take it.
Wow.
Yeah, just a lot. There's a lot going on. And I mean, we're just here to help people. And like I've told everyone, like, reach out to me. I'm very accessible. If you have something big coming up, DM me so that we know. It's better if we get a queue. Like, obviously, we're going through the agendas every night to see what is important and coming up. But if we get a queue, like, hey, I have a big bill tomorrow, or like today, what is it? Representative Ehart had her opt out, or it was opt in for sex ed, opt in for sex ed instead of opt out. And so I recorded that this morning. Free speech on campuses. Representative Hawkins brought what is it? Rent a superintendent. No, it's like the mentor superintendent one. Yeah. So yeah.
There's a senator in the background.
And there's a senator in the shot right now. You want to say hi?
I didn't know you were doing that.
Oh.
Are you doing a podcast?
Oh.
I didn't know that you. Okay, I'll get out of the shot.
Oh, it's so funny. He didn't know.
Oh,
this is an exciting show. It's an exciting show for us.
Yeah, it's a little more exciting than usual, but that's good. That's good. You know,
go ahead.
It's good for people to hear about and see things that remind them that you know. Remember when you're a child, you go to school, if you went to public schools, and you don't even think about the fact that your teachers exist outside of the school. They just live at the school. They're there 24/7. They exist in that room. And then you run into your teacher in the grocery store or something, and it's just so weird. It's
yes.
You know, same thing with our legislators. They don't exist 24/7 in the Capitol. They are real human beings that have lives outside of politics.
Yeah, totally. We've got one sitting right here, right? He's wonderful, right? Like he is I always call him the Matt Gaetz of Idaho. So, he said, with less hair.
Yeah, a little less hair,
but like a way better facial hair. Like, yeah, killing it. Is anti-slap through? What's going on with anti-slap? It'll pass. What else do you got coming up? Mask bills on Little's desk. How many years have we been trying to get that through? 5 years.
The mask bill.
10th attempt, and it's on Governor Little's desk right now.
Yep, it's on his desk as of this morning, and so there's 5 business days. So next Thursday morning, and I don't know, maybe he'll do the same thing as with the school choice bill and wait until the very last minute to keep everybody in suspense.
Yeah. Well, okay. So let's be real. He was going to sign that. Trump dead named it. Like he had to. Like if he didn't, he was going to lose re-election. He wouldn't get the Trump endorsement. I mean, I know everyone, like we do so we do the call outs, right? We do the call to actions, everybody do this. And there was a whole bunch of the calling, and we just kind of sat there. I was like, if he doesn't sign that bill, he's lost his reelection. So I kind of was like, maybe you shouldn't. I don't want to be governor anymore. So, but it's okay. Anyway, so yeah, but hopefully the mask one gets, I mean, we've been trying for so long. I think there were some more immigration bills coming. Gosh, Redmond pushing it out, right? He's got the repeal light, Medicaid repeal light coming.
It's even lighter now. He introduced a new RS this morning.
Hold it to 6, right? It was at 11 point, and now it's 6 points.
I don't remember the details, but it's trying to trim it down. It's as if the Senate is a little tiny door, and you've got a big car full of stuff, and you have to trim things off of it to fit through.
Yes. So he's doing that. Well, that culminated in some drama this last weekend up in Kootenai. Ooh.
Oh yeah, I've been kind of leaving that alone. I'll let that process play out. But yeah, obviously we've seen Democrats throughout the nation are have no problem going to meetings and disrupting them in the name of whatever it is they're doing. Even at my meeting, my District 14 meeting, had several people come in there and try. They didn't try and monopolize or try and disrupt it. They just tried to kind of monopolize it, where they wanted to. They were reading from their phone in some cases, where they're saying, well, how dare you vote for this bill that's going to reduce healthcare and this reason. And I'm up there trying to moderate. And, I don't want to get, mean about it, but okay, come on, get to the question, please.
Yeah.
So it was very, very, very light at our meeting, but it was kind of the same spirit. We're waiting to see if anybody shows up ready to disrupt the ACRCC meeting next week, which we hold at the Ada County Courthouse. So I would recommend people don't try and disrupt that.
Yeah, don't disrupt that. Well, we had ours in Kootenai on Tuesday. And so, I mean, I'm not a PC. For anybody who says I'm like inclined with the GOP, like I'm not, other than being a registered Republican, I have no formal affiliation with the GOP. Sorry, Gary Graff. But when we had ours on this Tuesday, so that that crazy thing happened on Saturday, and then Tuesday we had our KCOCC meeting, and I had friends there, and they were like, text me, something happened, and it was all quiet. I don't know that anybody disrupted the Central Committee meetings for Kootenai on Tuesday. Like I didn't hear anything about that, and I'm pretty sure I would have seen it on X. So, nope, didn't see that. So that's good. So hope that's good news for you. Maybe yours will be called.
I mean, there's some people who maybe are eager for some excitement, but yeah, I don't know. I'm not expecting much. You have a certain crew of people up there in North Idaho who are just by nature disruptive. It seems, pulling fire alarms and things like that. So.
Well, I mean, look at what happened to Representative Razor's shop. Like I keep telling people this, like she may not have a lot of leftists in Idaho, but the ones we have are violent. They're mentally ill and they're violent. And it was 4th of July parade, or it was before the night of the 4th of July, and they lit the fireworks off, or I don't know. They lit it on fire. They lit Cornell Razor's surplus store on fire, burned it to the ground. And I actually was just talking to him 2 days ago, and I said, what's the news? And she had claimed like insanity. I think she had, went to like a mental health, like not a jail, but she's at a mental health place. Well, they've deemed her competent, and so now she's in real jail. And 2 weeks, I believe he said, in 2 weeks there's going to be like the hearing. And I mean, you can get away with a lot in these areas, these like Sandpoint and Coeur d'Alene, like some of these communist infiltrated areas, but I don't know, you get away with burning down somebody's shop. So
no. Well, down here, we threw the law at people who were stealing signs back during the campaign. There were the "Don't Californicate Idaho" signs, the "No on Prop 1" signs, and people were going around vandalizing them, drawing swastikas on them, cutting them in half. And one person was caught stealing them because some of our PCs in Ada County set up a little sting operation with some trail cams.
I saw the video. Oh, they had the air tags on them, right? And they went to the door.
And they used the air tags as well.
Oh, my God.
And they followed them, caught the person in the act. And she decided to fight it in court at first, but eventually she pled guilty to petty theft and has to do community service, which is good. I mean, we're not going to throw somebody in the slammer for this, but there should be repercussions, and that should be a message to others that we're not going to tolerate this. It's like the broken window theory of policing. If you let little things slide, then they're going to start doing big things.
Agreed with that.
So, anything else? I don't want to keep you all day. I want to, let you get back to your partying.
Everything has been great. I mean, it's fun being here and seeing the backside, like you said. Like it's easier to focus when we have our laptops and we're just doing our thing up north, but you definitely have to come down here and feel it and need it. And it's interesting because the vibe here is different than 2023, right? So when I came here, we had a whole new freshman life, right? We had tripled our conservative numbers. We went from 13 Liberty legislators to 36, I believe, right? So when I came here, it was like all new people, and we had already sort of met, like we had met Senator Lenny before he started his 2023 session. Like we met him at the convention in Twin Falls. So we'd already known him. And then we knew, like, obviously our northern legislators. So when I got down there in 2023, it was cool to kind of like pull them all together because they didn't really know each other, but everyone was forming their cliques, right? It's sort of high school. It's like you have your little clique. And it was fun and entertaining to watch that clique develop. And it was even more entertaining to watch like the rhinos, like wander around, like have no idea what they're doing. Like they didn't know each other. They didn't know who they were supposed to be with. They didn't know who voted like them yet. And the conservative movement like had already locked down its people. So, I mean, they were all on the same endorsement list. So they all clicked up really quickly and outnumbered them. And it was interesting to watch them off around, but it was really like people just trying to get their footing. And this session obviously it's been really entertaining to watch, but being down here, like the vibe's totally different, right? Everyone knows their way around, right? We didn't get that many. I mean, we do have new people, but less new people. So the numbers are higher. We went +8, right? So we had 36. I think we're at like 44 conservatives now, 105 total. We need like 54, 53 to get the whip. So we're not that far away from having the whip. But what's happening is in the Trump era, with a 70% win for Trump in the state of Idaho, all these people are pulling right. So we're seeing people who are like historically bad scorers or, kind of a little bit swampy or had their like special interests. We're seeing all of them get pulled right. We're getting dream legislation through right now. It's never like we've never seen anything like it. And it's just pretty wonderful. It's great to watch. And I would caution people beating up on people who have historically had bad scores, because right now they're carrying like some of the biggest tax cut bills in the history of the state. Like, don't get fixated on something, an org told you to, like, two specific topics that really have no bearing and aren't even billed or up for vote. Like watch the feeds that we're putting out, like watch the stuff that's going through. We're seeing such like exceptional legislation going through. Like, just focus and watch and see all the things moving around. And I think at the end of this session, we're going to see just a giant list of wins. I mean, it's been going through so easy. The only thing I've been upset about, the only thing I have heartburn over is HJM 1 dying, which was Dale's joint memorial for
joint resolution.
Yeah, the joint resolution. And it was the constitutional amendment for homeschool. Like, it was codifying it into the Constitution that, it is up to the parents and not the schools, right? And that's the only thing that's died that I've really been upset about. Everything else is just kicking and screaming, moving along. So it's cool.
Yeah, we'll see how it plays out, but it's I think I feel the same way in that it's been an overall positive session so far, and we'll see what happens when they go sine die here in about a month or so.
A month? Yeah, I heard there's no way they're getting out in March. I know that they aim for it, but I mean, I heard some senators today that were like, "We ain't getting out in March. It's not gonna happen."
Well, they've been passing some budget bills, so once
Oh,
those really start moving, then it's going to go quickly, I think.
yeah,
We'll
I
see.
saw some appropriations go through today too. Well, thanks for having me on. I don't want to take up all your time, but if you have anything else, and I'll go bump off and hang out with this Baldy over here.
Yeah, well, enjoy the rest of your evening, and yeah, maybe I'll see you before you go home.
Yeah, we're leaving soon, but we should be back.
All right.
Much to everyone's dismay, is what Brady said.
Bye.
Bye, Brian.
Yeah, so there you go. That's Lauren and her friends. Not everybody's cup of tea if you follow her on Twitter, but definitely is willing to say what she thinks, which is not always the case in politics. People often guard their words. I think I guard my words a little bit, just really because I want to be sure that I'm saying what I really mean before I just say something. But yeah, some of the stuff she was referring to there, the mask mandate bill, it hit the governor's desk today, and that starts a ticking clock of 5 business days, 5 working days. So it's Friday, and then it'll finish day 1 on Monday morning, and then Tuesday morning, Wednesday, Thursday. And so that hopefully he will sign that, just like he signed the school choice bill. The mask mandate bill passed with veto-proof majorities in both sides. So I assume it's a done deal, but you never know. It's a little unpredictable, kind of like a sports game. So I just wanted to go through a few things I've got over here. Let's bring up my screen. Remember to go visit gemstatechronicle.com for all the latest. Still got 2 sponsors right now, looking at possibly adding a few more here very shortly, but we've got Idaho Family Policy Center. They have their petition to do Bible reading in the school. You can click that and see what they mean by that. It's they have this plan this bill that would allow reading of the Bible without instruction. So it's like you're not going to be teaching children about it. You're just going to be reading it, make them familiar with it, which is an interesting idea. And then you've got Lynn Bradeskew's Boise Realty Group. She's been a longtime supporter, and I appreciate that. And so I want to return the favor by pointing out that those people are sponsoring this platform. I couldn't do it without you. Couldn't do it without sponsors. Let's see. Where did we leave off last week? Always check out the Saturday roundups if you ever miss anything. As the name suggests, I publish them almost every Saturday. If you're over on Substack, on the Substack side, you can actually sign up for just the Saturday roundups. Just sign up for the weekly updates. In case you don't want to get in one email a week, you can just get a little digest every Saturday. And in case you haven't seen it, I go through each of my articles of the week, guest editorials that I published. I'll link to this show tomorrow in the roundup. Then I just kind of post other random things that I've read or watched. Idaho Signal, I show up on there every day, 11:30 a.m. Mountain Time. And so make sure you're catching that. In addition to me on that show, there's also other interesting people. So in this one from last Saturday, I linked to Matt Edwards talking with Charity Joy of the Kootenai Journal, talking about a bill from Representative Ehlers that would make it so that instead of government agencies having to publish official notices in their local newspaper at a fixed cost, they could instead put it on a government website. Now, there's some debate on that. Do we want those notices to be run by the government? Well, they're kind of mandated by the government, so I don't necessarily see the argument there. But the bigger point that both Charity and I have made is that this is essentially forced taxpayer subsidies of local newspapers. And, well, I'm not a big fan of that. Anyway, I hosted Representative Jaron Crane on the House Republicans podcast. It's a project I've been working on. Idaho Freedom Foundation does Capitol Clarity every week on Thursday. They do it live at the Lincoln Auditorium in the Capitol from noon to 1. This was last week. They talked about sound money, Aaron McIntyre, Lotus Eaters, and then upcoming events, Ada County Lincoln Day. In case you didn't know, the story of Ada County Lincoln Day. So for the last 114 years, give or take, Ada County's Lincoln Day has been the purview of a private organization. Unlike every other county in Idaho that has its own, where the Republican Central Committee hosts a Lincoln Day dinner, in Ada County, it was the Ada County Lincoln Day Association that hosted the dinner. And it was a private group, and essentially all they did was host the Lincoln Day, and then proceeds would go to the next year's Lincoln Day, and they'd donate them also to charitable organizations, sometimes even to the Republican Party. However, this year they decided to give that to the Ada County Republican Central Committee. So this is the first official Ada County Republican Lincoln Day dinner. And that will be Friday, April 4th at the Idaho State Museum, featuring Congresswoman Harriet Hageman of Wyoming. Her claim to fame, obviously, is that she defeated Liz Cheney. So that's an upcoming event. So yeah, that's the Saturday roundup. Go check it out. Let's see, this week, Monday, wrote about foreign workers. There's always talk about what to do about immigration and guest workers. According to the McClure Center, we have up to 35,000 illegal aliens in Idaho. And according to the Idaho Dairymen's lobbyist, 70% of their employees would possibly fail a citizenship audit, which means they're likely illegal, using either forged documents, stolen documents, or no documents at all. I don't know. And so the solution offered by the dairy industry and the agricultural industry is, well, we need to increase guest workers. We need to reform the H-2A visa so that we can have year-round guest workers. We need to legalize those people who are here, give them a pathway to being legal. And I and a lot of other conservative people disagree. We think more foreign workers is not the answer. We need to reform the system so that we hire American again. Of course, they say, Americans don't want to do these jobs, but is that really the case, or have they just been priced out? When they say that, I think what they're really saying is that Americans won't do the jobs for the wages we offer. And so it's a broken market, and I actually go into the market theory and supply and demand in there. Tuesday, I mentioned it when talking to Lauren. We had our sign thieves here in Ada County who were stealing some Republican signs. They were caught. She was caught, actually. In this case, it was a woman, and she was made to pay restitution, and as well as do some community service. So we need to do those things. It might seem petty, no pun intended, to enforce the law to this degree against somebody who was stealing a sign. But again, it's broken window theory. If you don't fix the little things, then big problems are going to follow. And if we don't hold people accountable for stealing signs, then the next thing they're going to do is do something worse. So we need to remind people that the law does apply to them, and that you're not just allowed to go up and steal a sign or cut it in half or spray a swastika on it. The next two articles looking at a set of bills, a quartet of bills that rewrite the campaign finance rules, lobbyist rules, libel rules, and also create a way to put campaign information that you believe to be false about you, if you're a candidate, on the Secretary of State's website and ask them to adjudicate whether it's true or false. I wrote about all four of those bills here. I think the first two, the campaign finance and the lobbyist rewrite, those are interesting, and I'd like to see more discussion on those. The biggest thing about the campaign finance one is it increases the contribution limits. Right now, you can contribute $1,000 to a candidate for legislature, and then another $1,000 for their general election. So $2,000 per year per election total, per set of primary and general election. This would raise that to $5,000. So a total of $10,000 for the primary and general combined. And the point being that with inflation, things are more expensive, but also political action committees have no limits. If I wanted to support or oppose a candidate, I could give them $1,000 or give their opponent $1,000. Or let's say I have unlimited money, I can give $1 million to some PAC and tell them, hey, take out some ads against this candidate. And this just, I see what they're doing. They're trying to bring a little bit of balance there. The other two are a little less clear. Raising the penalties for libel. Right now, if you're convicted of criminal libel, you could face a fine of $5,000 or 6 months in jail. And that law has been on the books for a long time. It was codified in 1972, but even before that, it was on the books way back before statehood, back in the 1800s. However, there was a big New York Times case in 1964 called Supreme Court case, I should say, New York Times versus Sullivan. And that case said that if you're a public figure, and by running for office, you are by definition a public figure, the threshold for proving that somebody has committed libel against you or slander, if it's spoken, is very high. You have to prove that they acted with actual malice, which is that they knew it was false and they knew it would damage your reputation, and they did it anyway. And that's very hard to prove. How do you prove that somebody knew something was false before they said it? Unless you find a note where they wrote to themselves, yes, I know this is a false thing, but I'm going to say it anyway, it's very hard to prove. So because of that, criminal libel has rarely been prosecuted in Idaho. This would codify the actual malice statute in law, and it would also raise the penalty from, instead of a $5,000 fine, it would go up to $100,000, and instead of 6 months in jail, it would go up to 5 years in jail, 5 years in prison. And that's really high. It has a lot of people freaked out, saying that they're going to criminalize speech, which I don't think that's the case, but it could be over the top. I don't know. We'll see how the debate plays out. And then finally, the other bill having the Secretary of State come in as essentially a fact checker. I don't know, not really supportive of that. We don't want to go down the road of giving the government the power to decide what's true and what's not. And in some cases, there are things that are obviously true, like this flyer from Make Liberty Win, the PAC associated with Young Americans for Liberty, says that these three legislators from last year, Representative Cannon, Representative Young, and Senator Van Orden, voted to allow porn in school libraries, House Bill 314. That was false. All three of them voted for House Bill 314. And there was an additional one saying that allowing $3 million to spew leftist propaganda on public television, Senate Bill 1399. That was the appropriation for Idaho Public TV. And in that case, Representative Cannon, Senator Van Orden did vote for that appropriations bill. Representative Young didn't. And she's the one who ends up losing by 2 votes. So she has a very solid case that this flyer, which was sent to voters in her district, caused her to lose that race. Obviously, when you only lose by 2 votes, there's a lot of reasons you can point to. But anyway, nevertheless, putting a government agency, in this case the Secretary of State's office, in charge of deciding what is true or false, that's a little bit beyond the pale, I think. So again, we'll see if these come to a full hearing and have a debate. And then finally today, this morning, I just wrote a little bit that's been on my mind lately about the difference between demagoguery and discourse. Demagoguery, here I put the definitions up on top. A demagogue is a leader who makes use of popular prejudices and false claims and promises in order to gain power. Basically, it's somebody in politics who will say anything to rile up the crowd in order to advance their own agenda. And a lot of political organizations do that. A lot of people do that. You see that with the clickbait headlines. You see that with accusations, social media ads. I used some examples in here. And I don't know, it just kind of gets old to me. Politics is more than just bumper stickers. And so I try to engage in discourse, which is this other definition I put up here: a mode of organizing knowledge, ideas, or experiences rooted in language in its concrete context, such as history or institutions. That's basically being logical, being thorough, understanding context. Don't want to toot my own horn here too much, but that's what I'm trying to do. I don't always succeed, but the difference between demagoguery and discourse is that demagogues want to make you angry, so that when you're angry, you will do what they want, whether it's clicking something or signing up for something or calling your legislator and chewing them out. I don't care about that. I don't care if you click on things. I don't even care if you agree with me. I just want you to have as much context and information as possible so that you're making an informed decision. If I present, 2 sides of an argument, as I often do, I'll present one side and then I'll present the other, try to present the best arguments on both sides, and then I'll present, okay, here's what I believe. If you come away with that believing something different than me, then that's fine. At least it was an informed decision. It would be so easy for me to go the other way, to just post the clickbait and the outrage generating headlines and not even mention any opposing arguments or just set up straw men. I see that way too often, and I just don't want to do that. So check that out. Also, at another article I wrote today, I write an article every week for Citizens Alliance for Idaho Signal. It is exclusively on X, aka Twitter. So follow Citizens. It's at Citizens_Idaho on Twitter. Go ahead and follow that, and you'll see this every week. And this is just basically about how the reason we're seeing some good things happen in the legislature this year is because of you. It's because you're getting involved. It's because you're getting the information you need to be an engaged citizen of a republic, putting pressure on our legislators to do the right thing, to persuade them to do the right thing, but also replacing legislators who don't do the right thing. Last year, the school choice tax credit, essentially the same bill, the same main framework of the bill, a $5,000 tax credit for parents whose children go to non-public schools or not enrolled in public schools. It failed in the committee. Well, several members of that committee were replaced by you, by the voters. And then we come back this year and it passes the committee. And it still takes a lot of work. The bill they still had to add things and take things away and structure it just right to get through everything. It's like one of those puzzles where you have to create a shape that can go through every doorway, and they're all shaped differently. It takes a lot of finesse sometimes to get things through. Same thing with the mask mandate bill, House Bill 32. You called your legislators, you signed petitions, you sent them emails, you talked to them in person, you went to the town halls, you let them know what you thought, and you elected people who agreed with you that we should not have government telling us we have to cover our face when we leave our home. And it is finally going through. They've been working on it for several years. Carrie Hanks brought it. Jason Gallagher brought it. And finally this year, Representative Rob Beiswinger and Senator Brian Lenny got it finally through. And having those people in previous years pushing it, helps as well, because it shows what can be done. And that is the value of sometimes doing something that isn't going to go anywhere, but you can say, okay, this is the model, this is what we can do. And then you have another year to campaign, to persuade, to get people on board, to get citizens interested so that they put the pressure on the legislature. Then you come back the next year and you try again. So yeah, go check that out. Make sure you're following Citizens Alliance. I wanted to share a few other things with you. Let's see. What's our time? About 20 minutes. I want to play this video for you. Let's close the screen there. Idaho Freedom Foundation hosts Capitol Clarity every Thursday, like I said. It's at noon Mountain Time in the Lincoln Auditorium in the Capitol building. This week, they talked about DEI, diversity, equity, inclusion. And that is obviously a big topic, both at the federal and the state level. This year, there was a legislative committee, an interim committee. Those are the ones that meet in between sessions, that examined the issue and heard testimony and debated and brainstormed to come up with some legislation. And Senator Ben Taves was part of that committee and came out of it with a bill to eradicate DEI from public colleges and universities. I carried a resolution through the Republican Party this year calling for just such a bill. And some people asked me, they said, hey, do you really need to run this? Because after all, last year, the State Board of Education issued a memo saying that we're not going to have DEI in our schools anymore. And I said, absolutely, we need this, because what's to stop them from just going back? We need legislation to codify this. Otherwise, either it's just going to come back, or they're going to do the same thing they did when the legislature outlawed CRT, critical race theory. They'll just change the name and keep going. So we need to let them know that we're watching them, and this is going to happen. So Senator Taves presented that bill, and at Capitol Clarity, he spoke, and Samuel Lair, the education director for IFF, spoke, and also Dr. Scott Yenner of the Claremont Institute. He was a Boise State professor and a friend of mine. He spoke too, and I wanted to play just a very short clip of his speech because it has some interesting ideas to bounce off of.
And another thing, and this will be my last point, that I think, and this isn't a direct application of President Trump's executive order, but it's another real benefit of Senator Taves' bill, is that it has a very effective mechanism for enforcement. Like, I've been involved in helping to craft the bills in Florida and in Texas, and the executive actions in Iowa and Wyoming. And the enforcement mechanism is always the hardest. And ultimately, the enforcement really falls onto the personnel of the university. Like, the personnel of the university have to be in favor of the law that you're passing. If they're opposed to it, it's very difficult to lever and to oversee every action. So ultimately, like, personnel is policy. This mechanism comes the closest to, like, overseeing and controlling hostile administrators. There's a large chunk of budgets that can come out of what universities get from the state if they violate a policy. And this is the hardest thing to sustain through legislative process. There's a private right of action. So people who feel they've been wronged have now a private right of action. So you don't have to rely on another bureaucrat to sue a state. Private citizens under this bill can sue a state. So you're going to hear a lot of complaints that the definition of DEI isn't succinct enough or isn't clear enough. Let me just talk about that for a second. To me, this is one of these straw man arguments. When we passed the Civil Rights Act of 1964, no one thought that meant men and women's sports. No one thought it meant that. When we passed the 64 Civil Rights Act, no one thought it meant disparate impact. And in fact, members of the Senate said, if it ever means disparate impact, I will eat the bill. Like, physically take the words out of the book. Hubert Humphrey said he would eat it. And in 15 months, that's what it meant. The vagueness is a selective argument that is used against our side on this. We should have a good conscience and recognize that we have defined diversity, equity, and inclusion way more comprehensively and honorably than the other side has ever attempted to define anything in their lives. Feel good about how it's being done, and the bill will have a nice impact on restoring people's confidence in public education in Idaho. Thank
you. Bam, there we go. Yeah, caught me off guard there. He ends that quite abruptly, and that's the end of his talk. I was actually in the room when he did that. I came in late for Capital Clarity on Thursday, and it caught me off guard in person as well. But a couple of things he's pointing out about DEI is that the left always plays a game. It's a rhetorical technique called a Mott and Bailey. There was a Middle Ages castle style called a Mott and Bailey. If you've ever played real-time strategy games, you might recognize it. You have the Mott is the castle. It's the fortress. It's the place where the soldiers can go. It's the place of protection. It's very fortified and defended. And then you have a bigger area around it called the Bailey, which is where people can go do their farming and things and live and whatever. And normally they're just spread out, but when they get attacked, they retreat to the safety of the Mott. And so rhetorically, what that means is that somebody will have an expansive definition of something. DEI, diversity, equity, inclusion, means that you must be ashamed to be a white male. It means that we need special funding and special things on campus for people of every other race and gender and however many of those there are. You're not even allowed to say that people should get in shape because that's ableist or that's fat phobic or whatever. And once we come at that and criticize that, then they will retreat to a very narrow definition and say, no, this is just about creating resources for everybody. And you'll see this. You'll see this in debates. I remember last year, I want to say it was Senator Wintrow, one of the Democrats from Boise, was arguing against a bill to restrict DEI by saying that DEI in college is just about giving military veterans a little bit of extra help that they might need to acclimate on campus. That's the Mott and Bailey argument. When they're on the offensive, they use a very expansive definition, but when they're on the defensive, they say, oh, how could you possibly disagree with this? And Dr. Yanner was making that point there. And so when you start seeing that rhetorical technique, then you're not going to be able to unsee it. So watch the next time. If Senator Taves's bill gets to the floor or even in the committee, we're still waiting a hearing. Watch for this technique, as the bill will lay out exactly what DEI is and why it's bad. And in debate, we'll have all sorts of examples of why this is a bad thing, why it's divisive, why it's anti-American. But then the people who oppose getting rid of it, the people who support DEI programs, they'll get up and they'll use a very narrow definition. how could you oppose, these groups for American Indians, students on campus? And it's, once you see it, you won't be able to unsee it. Speaking of Senate Bill 1048, so there's another bill. Let's go back a little bit. Well, I'm going to do the Trump weave here. Representative Foreman, Senator Denton Hartog had their school choice bill, the tax credit, which is now signed. While it was still going through the process, another senator brought up a different bill. And that bill was what he called, I believe it was Senator Dave Lent, chairman of the Education Committee, what he called a real school choice bill. And it was essentially expanding the Empowering Parents Grant and applying it to private school tuition, but it had all sorts of strings attached, and he called that accountability. And so the point was to try and present an alternative. Well, we don't have to do that bill. We can do this bill and then say that we did school choice. It failed badly in the Senate, and of course, House Bill 93 became law. Well, same thing is going on here. A little discombobulated here. I just want to double check something on the bill before I bring it up. So Senator Taves has his Senate Bill 1048. Yeah, there we go. Where'd my window go? Too many screens. All right, so I'm going to go over and share my screen again. There's another bill, Senate Bill 1123, presented by Senator Jim Guthrie, the chairman of the House, the Senate State Affairs Committee. So I used ChatGPT here, and I shared this over. What is the difference between these two bills? And by the way, ChatGPT or other LLM AIs are very cool about this. You can upload a PDF and ask it to summarize it for you, ask questions about what's in it. Obviously, double check, always check, trust but verify. But it is a real time saver on things like this. It also can help me with Excel formulas, by the way. So I uploaded both bills. I downloaded them from the legislative website and then uploaded them both here and said, hey, what's the difference? And so it explains. The primary focus of Senate Bill 1048 is prohibits DEI offices, trainings, courses, and bias reporting systems. Senate Bill 1123 prohibits DEI ideology and institutional policies in employment and education decisions. Senate Bill 1048 defines DEI extensively. Senate Bill 1123 defines it more narrowly. Scope of actions, enforcement. What's really interesting, the difference between the bills is the enforcement is a civil action in Senator Taves's bill, whereas in Senator Guthrie's bill, it's enforcement is held by the State Board of Education, which of course has already issued the memo saying no more DEI, but should we entrust enforcement of that to them? Well, I don't know. My sense with this is that it's a similar situation as with Senator Lent's school choice bill, is that this is kind of an attempt to present an alternative that doesn't really do what we want it to do. That's just my sense. Neither of them have actually had a hearing or a debate, but it will be interesting to see if they do. And it gives us a summary. Senate Bill 1048 takes a broad approach, aiming to eliminate DEI offices, bias reporting systems, and required DEI courses. It allows lawsuits against institutions and grants enforcement power to the Attorney General. Senate Bill 1123 is more targeted, focusing on banning institutional DEI policies and discriminatory hiring admissions while placing financial penalties on violators enforced by the State Board of Education. So there you go. That's very helpful. It's a time saver. But again, trust but verify, always double check. So yeah, looks like we've got about 10 minutes. There's a couple more things I wanted to cover today. Here, let me share my screen again. So on the governor's website, there is a legislative session page, and it tells you what's going on in the session as it relates to the governor. Obviously, the governor is not in the legislature. He is part of the executive branch, separate branches of government, co-equal, checks and balances, you know the drill. But this will tell you everything related to the legislature that is happening from the office of the governor. So it has his budget, it has his state of the state address, it has various press releases. He really likes the launch grant, no surprise. But what I want to draw your attention to is the tracking sheet. So you click on this, and this tells you everything, every bill that has reached his desk and what he's done with it. So every bill, the reason the date and time are marked is because he has exactly 5 working days to decide what to do with it. If he signs it, it becomes law. If he vetoes it, it goes back to the House or the Senate, whichever chamber it came from, and they have an opportunity to try and override the veto with a 2/3 vote. If he doesn't do anything and it reaches that statutory deadline, it will become law without his signature. And he does that sometimes. Governors will do that sometimes if they really don't like a bill. They don't want to put their name on it, but they also realize that either the political costs to veto it are too high, or the logistics of it are not great. So sometimes that'll happen. So you can see there's been these bills have been signed. I don't know why this one doesn't have a time yet, but yeah, House Bill 93, school choice bill, was signed at 8:13 a.m. on Thursday. There are two bills that have reached his desk now. House Bill 32, that's the mask mandate bill. It reached his desk at 11:22 a.m. And House Bill 55, which I don't remember off the top of my head. Let's flip over here to the list of bills. By the way, this is also on the legislative website. As you can see, they have a lot of bills. The House has 348 bills and a bunch of resolutions and memorials. The Senate has 138 bills and a bunch of resolutions and memorials. So there's a lot of stuff going through the system, but we're interested in House Bill 55. There it is. Percy volunteers. Well, that's interesting. I don't think I've seen this bill before. So let's read it. Let's find out what's going on. It passed both houses unanimously with no opposition. There's one person absent in the House vote, two people absent in the Senate vote. So it's apparently something everybody supports. This was sponsored by Representative Dygert of District 23. It allows newly retired Percy members to volunteer with a Percy employer without changing their benefit. No compensation, not add years of service, allows repayment of benefits if a member is not a bona fide volunteer. Interesting. Okay, so it's just clarifying a little quirk of the law. Based on reading this, I would guess that if you were retired and collecting Percy benefits, that's Public Employees Retirement Systems of Idaho. It's the retirement program for state employees, including members of the legislature and the executive branch and the judicial branch. I would guess just by reading this that if you volunteered in some capacity, that it might impact your benefits. So just looks like it's just closing a little loophole. So go check out the governor's tracking sheet. This is actually something I'll bookmark going forward and be checking it more regularly as we near the end of the session. We'll see what's going on with all those bills. So I also wanted to, in the last few minutes I have here, Idaho Dispatch had this article yesterday. Lawmakers question police actions at the Capitol. Several lawmakers are alleging that several law enforcement officers were trying to intimidate or pressure lawmakers at the Capitol to vote a certain way on legislation, with one lawmaker raising concerns about police actions in the House gallery during a vote on House Bill 187. So House Bill 187, let's open, or I've already got it open here. This bill, this legislation expands search authority on probationers and parolees for probation and parole officers to include other law enforcement officers. This change will enhance public safety, streamline enforcement efforts, and ensure consistency in monitoring compliance with probation and parole conditions. By granting this authority to a broader range of officers, this legislation will improve interagency collaboration, reduce delays in addressing violations, and provide better support for community supervision programs. So apparently, I haven't dug too deeply into it, but apparently it gives a little bit more power to police to stop, detain, and search people who are on parole. Now, on parole means that they are still technically serving out their sentence, but they have been released to go, work their job or do whatever they have to do in their lives. But there's a lot of restrictions on that life. You don't have the same rights you would if you were just a regular free person. The police can stop you. They can force you to double check, and this is where sometimes they'll even put ankle bracelets on people to monitor where they go and make sure they don't go where they shouldn't. So anyway, but this is a little bit beside the point. The point of the article here is that whenever there's a bill that various police departments or members of law enforcement want to see passed, you'll see them. And this is something like Lauren said, you don't necessarily see if you're not in the room. They will come into the committee hearing room or up into the House or Senate gallery, and they're wearing their uniforms. And this was apparently one of the issues here, because it sounds like, let's see, several lawmakers who asked for anonymity told Idaho Dispatch it's been an issue several times. Lawmakers we spoke with said they'd asked the officers why they were in uniform, but the officers told they were off duty. Let's see. Tells you what happens. I'm going to play a clip here in a minute. Citizens are prohibited from wearing clothing in the gallery to promote specific groups. For instance, gun owners could not show up in gear such as hats and shirts to promote a specific gun organization while a vote's taking place. Lawmakers they spoke with said uniformed officers were in the gallery standing and looking down at lawmakers as they were getting ready to cast their votes. Some lawmakers felt the officers were trying to intimidate or pressure them into voting for the legislation. So I put together a clip showing what actually happened that day. And they apparently had a problem with the voting machine in the House. They have a voting machine where you push a button that registers your vote as yes or no. And so I cut out some dead air time of when they're trying to fix the machine. So you'll see that I try to make it obvious with transitions when that happens. But I trimmed it down to about 2 minutes. This is the end of debate on House Bill 187 in the House, and then the vote on it and what happened in between as lawmakers were concerned with what some of them apparently said was intimidation by uniformed police officers in the gallery.
I urge your green light for this pro-law enforcement bill. I urge your green light.
Thank you, gentlemen. Base closed. Question is, House Bill 187 pass the House? Clerk will mark the machine. Members will cast their votes. Nope, she won't yet.
Mr. Speaker.
Gentleman, 22.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. This bill is not an easy bill, but I'm a little troubled by having law enforcement standing up at the balcony.
Good gentlemen, debate's closed. I'm sorry. I apologize. We're in the middle of a vote.
Okay.
Mr. Speaker, can you put the House at ease in the middle of a vote or not? We've got a situation that needs to be addressed.
Not till the vote's done, then we can do that.
But it's regarding the vote, Mr. Speaker.
Steve Clerk. The Speaker, because we're in the middle of a vote, I think the motion is inappropriate. We're trying to find it. We're looking at Mason so everybody knows what we're looking at, so you understand what we're doing, making sure what we can and can't do. Because remember, I had asked to unlock the machine and vote, and then we stopped to enter the pairs. And nobody should be standing up from their chairs or leaving either, by the way. Good move. Okay, the House will be back in order. Sorry about that. We were trying to figure out if there's a way to talk and to stop the debate when we're in the middle of a vote. We had a couple of things happen, so one of our members who was here when we were talking left. So we will destroy that pair slip because they were here when we started the vote. The point of order was to put the House at ease, and I think it was to talk about some of the stuff going in the gallery. That could happen on any vote. But when we're in the middle of a vote, that discussion should have happened before we started to call the roll call when I said, open the machine. So next time we need to have that discussion a little bit closer to when before we start the vote, open the voting machine and start the roll call. With that, the clerk will unlock the machine and members will continue to vote. Has every member voted? Does any member wish to change their vote? Clerk will lock the machine, record the pair. The clerk will lock the machine, record the pair.
So that was what happened in the House a few days ago. And the bill obviously passed. Last year, there was a bill to put mandatory minimum jail sentences or prison sentences in for fentanyl possession, or fentanyl trafficking is what they called it, but they defined trafficking as possessing a certain threshold of fentanyl. And there was a lot of debate on the bill. Some people were opposed to mandatory minimums on principle. Some people were worried about some of the language of the bill. Others were worried about catching, essentially patsies up into, a very harsh sentence. And the debate on the part of law enforcement right off the bat was that if you oppose this, you don't back the blue. And if you support this, then you do back the blue. And the chairman of the committee that it was heard in shut that down right off the bat. But still, that was hanging in the air. And I think when they're, uniformed police officers are showing up, they are, there is a sense of intimidation, even if they don't necessarily mean it. It's because it's saying, of course, we all support police. Republicans support the rule of law. We back the blue. And if there's this sense that if you vote against this bill, then you're not backing the blue, then that is a form of a form of persuasion, isn't it? Anyway, I brought this up just because it's an interesting question. What Greg Pruitt in the article mentioned is that other groups are not allowed to wear certain things in the gallery. You can't have a sign that says "Vote yes" on this bill, and you can't have that written on your shirt. I remember when Senator Lenny, before he was a senator, he was senator-elect, came into the House of Representatives during the special session in 2022. I wish I could remember what he had on his shirt, but he had something on his shirt, and Scott Begke, who at the time was Speaker of the House, told him he had to leave and change his shirt. The Speaker has that authority. You can tell the people in the gallery what to do. So they enforce that, but off-duty police officers can come and wear their uniforms. Firefighters can come wearing paraphernalia, their gear, when they support something. There's a bill going through the legislature to say that teachers' unions should not have taxpayer funds, and all the other unions, especially the firefighters union, come and support them, and because they want to support their fellow unions, and they wear various paraphernalia showing that they're a firefighter. Even the same thing. There was a group last week when I was in the Rotunda who was protesting a bill that would withdraw Idaho from a program where we work with the University of Washington to train medical students. And a bunch of people were protesting that bill. They did not want it to pass. And so they're there wearing their lab coats because they're doctors. Now, you don't need a lab coat to go to the Capitol. But what are they doing? It's the same thing the firefighters do. It's the same thing the police officers do. It's the same thing everybody in these various groups do. They're wearing clothing that conveys a sense of authority. When somebody comes in wearing a lab coat, they're saying that I am an expert. You need to listen to me. Same thing when the police come and testify in full uniform. They're saying, I am the blue. I am the law enforcement. I'm a police officer. You need to listen to me. My friend Dan McKnight has his Defend the Guard bills, saying that the National Guard should only be deployed overseas if we're actually at war, not if we're just doing these, endless policing actions in Yemen and Syria and wherever else. Whenever that bill goes to a committee, whether here in Idaho or in other states, who shows up to oppose it? Well, it's a military officer, a National Guard officer, a general with a very crisp and clean dress uniform with a bunch of stars on it showing his authority, saying, you better not pass this bill. Well, doesn't that put other people at a disadvantage? I mean, nobody wants to be the guy testifying in opposition to the general or the police officer or the doctor in a lab coat. So I don't know. I'm just kind of musing here, just kind of babbling. It's an idea. How clothing conveys authority, and how should we treat that? I'm not going to go as far as to say police officers shouldn't be allowed to wear their uniform or doctors shouldn't be allowed to wear their lab coats, but I don't know. It's a conversation, I think, a discussion. So that is about it for today. It is Friday evening. Go off and have some fun and enjoy your weekend. It's another week at the legislature next week. It only gets busier from here until we get to sine die. So remember to go to gemstatechronicle.com if you want to subscribe, support my work. Go to gemstate.substack.com. You can get a free subscription that will allow you to receive daily articles in your email, or you can support my work and help me do this for a little while longer. So thank you for watching. Thank you for your support. Thank you for reading. And I will see you next week.